Welcome to Emerging Franchise Brands, the podcast that introduces you to the visionary founders of America's fastest growing franchise opportunities. We'll also hear from industry pros as they share insights on what it really takes to achieve the elusive milestone of 100 plus locations. I am your host, Frank Fiume, founder of I9 Sports, and my 20-year journey from inception to acquisition has given me a unique perspective on how to succeed in franchising. Join me as we welcome today's guest. Welcome to Emerging Franchise Brands. I'm excited to have Mike Bahun here. He is the founder of Fundraising University. Mike, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Frank.
Awesome. Gosh, we got so much to talk about. We have so much in common, obviously having the sports background, both companies, my old company and what you do, definitely have some things in common in the youth sports arena. But why don't we do this? Why don't we start out by, if you would, why don't you briefly tell everybody what Fundraising University is and what you guys do?
Yeah, it's a service-based brand where we execute a demonstrated service in person, working alongside activity groups, sports teams, youth markets, elementary schools, where that service follows some very specific dynamics that accelerate results in fundraising. And results to those customers are time savings and performance as far as dollars per participant.
All right. So the bottom line here, if I understand it right, is this is so typical, right? In schools or in sports organizations, they are struggling to make ends meet. They're struggling because there's budget cuts with Parks and Rec. They need to raise some funds. So if I understand it right, what Fundraising University does is you guys have a vehicle, a way of helping teachers, coaches, school administrators, how to raise, like you guys are supporting fundraiser opportunities for them. Is that right?
That's right. Mm-hmm.
So give us a little bit of color. Give me a little background. If I'm running a tackle football league and we're trying to raise money for the club, what exactly would a franchise owner do for us? Like, how could you help us out?
Sure. So they would have a series of meetings that would ensure that the education and the dynamics are at play in order to be successful in that particular fundraiser. So we use a service-based system called the Blitz system that facilitates these dynamics that give us those two results, time savings and money raised in that short period of time. And so things like teamwork, organization, expectations, accountability. So it would be anywhere from 3 hours to a 1 week program only, depending on the product or service. And we come in and we provide the organization and those dynamics to lead that particular group to results from beginning to end. And when I say demonstrated service, it's the essence of it. We're there when it starts, we're there alongside the leadership, and then we're there when it concludes. And we see it all the way through from beginning to end. And we share in their performance. It's not, we collect a fee. We're actually getting paid a percentage of their success, which is the right type of relationship that we want to have. We want to perform, and we want to go and show our servant hands first in allowing us to prove what we can do and then sharing success with them.
That's awesome. Can you give me an idea? First of all, hold on. I need to back up. How did you even get involved in this? This is so cool. This is so unique.
No, it's awesome. So I was an athlete forever and loved the student athlete experience, and I wanted to stay involved in it. And when, like all of us do as athletes, somebody comes along and tells you you're not good enough anymore. I got done with professional baseball. I went back. And so the natural progression there is to do something else in sports. I tried scouting. I didn't like that. And so, because I was just being critical of players, and I actually wanted to support those. So I went back to my high school and I got introduced to fundraising by doing a fundraiser as a high school coach. And it was intriguing to me right away because I saw the opportunity. I was at that point where I was wanting to know, what I wanted to do, and I wanted to combine business and sports, and that was really kind of where it was birthed in 1999.
Wow. Okay, so you've been franchising now for 3 years, is that right? Since 2020?
Yeah, March of 2020. Mm-hmm.
But you founded your company as far back as 2009, if I understood it right?
That's right.
Wow. Mm-hmm. That's amazing. So, most people, I think, when they franchise their concept, don't get me wrong, they get years under their belt of really getting their business going. But you must have really honed a lot of the skills and had the systems and processes in place because you've been doing this for 11 years. You probably have this really well buttoned up, so to speak.
Yeah, it was important to us to be responsible before we scaled. Like, it started off as a regional brand, and then, it took shape to where, I have a business background as far as school, and I could see some of those dynamics in my maturity as an entrepreneur, allowing us to be bigger than we thought we could be. And so when we explored that, we were told, hey, you should have pretty quick success. And so when we unpacked what that was, it was scaling at a rate that was probably too much for us to be responsible. So we actually did all of our investing pre-scale. And so, we from 16 to 20, we actually did the opposite of what you usually see in the franchise world. Is we invested first into the resources and the tools and the trainers and the people, and then we brought people on when we felt like we were fully ready to support.
Dude, that's really unique. Most of us, we jump off the cliff and build the plane on the way down.
There was some of that too, but yeah.
No, it sounds like you had the plane pretty well built. That's really unique. That is very responsible. And the other thing, we were chatting before about this that you mentioned, I thought was also very unique is, do I understand right? You have 10 company-owned locations in addition to, is it 75 franchises? Do I have that right?
Yeah, we have 10 company and then 70, so 80 total. Mm-hmm.
Wow. Oh, okay. Yeah, 80 total. So what's it like? I mean, did you have these 10 company-owned locations first then? Were they all, or have you been adding company-owned locations like concurrently, at the same time? Have you been building it like a dual strategy? How has this been working?
Yeah, it's been a little bit of everything. We had about 6 of them first, and that's what gave us the confidence, that there was more we could do. And so then we went to the franchise, system, and we grew there. And then we continued to add corporate locations because and those are usually just organic. They're coaching relationships that I have as a coach at Ohio State. It's a customer who is moving to an area, and it just makes more sense to start them off. And then what it also does too, it gives us a responsible, controlled place to grow and test products, test our ERP, and really be able to go and stay actively engaged so that we can responsibly then again continue to add layers in for our franchise owners.
I love it. I'll share a quick story with you. When I first franchised my concept back in 2003, believe it or not, our first territory that we sold was our backyard. And we continued to sell franchises. I had no intentions of selling my backyard, but my first franchisee inevitably was right in the Tampa Bay area. And it's so tough because franchise owners kind of look at you like, okay, I know that you've established this franchise brand, but you yourself don't have your own living laboratory. I didn't have my laboratory. I sold it. And it's very hard to convince franchisees to grow their business and introduce new things or even refinements when we weren't doing them ourselves. I think that's beautiful that you have these 10 company-owned locations. Where are they scattered, or are they in this similar region? Where are these locations?
Yeah, for the most part, the 5 original ones are contained in Nebraska, in Kansas, and then they kind of have some elasticity again based on relational proximity. But then they go from Colorado to Arizona, and I think that will be normal as we get critical mass. We're starting to get a lot more inner referral, inner growth, and then that, everybody that comes to us internally, we can be a little more flexible with. So a little bit of everywhere.
That's great. Well, that's a real testament to your brand when you have your own company locations in different locations, and you have them, pretty wide, not only widespread, but you've developed them at different times as well. It just adds a new layer of depth to what you can provide your franchisees. I didn't even ask you though, how'd you even start franchising? Like, what made you learn to go in this direction of franchising? You could have continued to grow your company owned locations.
Yeah, like most entrepreneurs and most people, I guess, in America, there's not a very deep financial education that's part of our educational system. And someone who's not from, a lot of money, when we started to have some moderate success, I just continued to make, I don't want to say errors, but I just didn't know what I didn't know. And then, when I became a father, and that responsibility of planning and thoughtfulness really just, and ultimately frustration, got me to a point where I went and got what's considered a doctorate level entrepreneurial course called the Wealth Factory. And in that Wealth Factory, they teach you how banks work, and then they teach you how insurance works, investment products. And then the last part is business scale revenue. And it was actually presented to me by a gentleman that's been on the Rockefeller board to manage their money, and said, hey, I really think that the school system doesn't have, from what we could see at that point, many franchise systems that are supplying products or services into schools. And we really think yours is, and why. And so that was really super interesting to me. And then so, that was introduced to me in 18. And then from 18 to 20, I was part of a religious group called the C12, which is a national Christian CEO and CFO group. And I had, 3,000 people in a network where I could interview 46 franchisors and about 500 and some odd franchisees. So I listened in on calls, and I really did, that educational piece before we grew. And then that was what kind of gave me the confidence and experience to go and take that leap, which has been great. We've enjoyed it, but like you and I have talked about, like, the interesting thing about a franchise system, and as soon as you get good, you have to reinvent yourself. The guy who told you that one day when you get here, things will be good. Any kids that are listening out there, there's no such place. So just embrace it.
Right. Never get too comfortable, because once you do, something's about to hit the fan, right? Once you think you've got it, we got to a point I'll never forget where, look, when we were running our business, within a couple of years, we were almost bankrupt, right? We had a lot of things that were broken, and we fixed them. And I'll never forget, we got about 2 years past like disaster, and we had everything systems and processes wise. We had everything licked, and we thought we had everything we needed. And then what we didn't realize was, when you have this huge accelerated growth in franchising, it creates a whole new set of problems that you didn't have before. And well, that's business, but that's why so many people don't make it in business, right? Because they can't adapt. They make mistakes, and then they're afraid to make another mistake, so they don't make another decision. And I think
it's interesting to say that, because we got to that same point here, year 3, that you're talking about. It's like, okay, we did everything we were supposed to do. But then because of our growth and our ability to find customers and our ability to find franchise owners and being able to create revenue, we exploded past all of our operational and financial systems. And I sat down and I got some great coaching that helped me through it. And the guy, when we started smiling. He said, "This is awesome. This is right where you should be." And I said, well, I had a different word for it, but it's also interesting to know that, when you get to that point, as this grows, like we've talked about in these waves, that you actually get to the bottom again before you get to rebuild. And that's where the opportunity is. And it's exactly what you said. I talked to somebody, I did one of these that was similar, and they said, "Hey, congratulations, you've crossed over into only about where 8% of franchise systems ever get to." And I said, that seems so strange to me, because there's so many things we're still getting better at, right? And it was like, but you're right. I can't imagine that there's a ton of people that can endure what you've endured to keep going. And that really is the key indicator of a leader who can take this to the next level, is getting to that place where you have that quality in who you are. It's not your model. It's not even necessarily the people around you. They're great and they're a big part of it, but it's that person who can get to that next level. And so I congratulate you for that, and wanting to share it with people like me that are hoping to get there.
Oh, well, look, I get so inspired when I hear stories such as yourself. Franchising aside, if you would share with the audience, because I think at the end of the day, people buy from people, and such as yourself, where you have really an incredible backstory. You didn't come from having you weren't born with a silver spoon, right? Would you share?
No, it had dirt and alcohol and probably parole responsibilities associated with my spoon.
But at the end of the day, it made you who you are today, right? You are a better man. You're a better franchisor. You are a better leader, just a better person overall because of what you went through, I would imagine. If you would just share a little bit about your background with folks.
Yeah. I was, from good parents, but they didn't do well together, as I understand it. I'm obviously pretty young at this point, so I grew up in a single parent scenario, inner city. Had a good grandma, had a dad that was capable. So there was a lot of change and a lot of good intentions, but not a lot of good direction, as these are people that are working on themselves still. And so I found sports, right? At about 10 years old, they dropped me off, and I found a place where I could get male leadership and structure and discipline and accountability and teamwork and relationships. And I just fell in love with that environment, right? Because I just didn't have that, and I had so much desire to be different than what I was feeling, but I didn't have any way to communicate that. And so sports gave me that, right? It gave me all of those things, and it continued to nurture that and to give that to me, just the process of sports and schools and activities. And that's why I'm here. Like, I want to find, 3,000 more Mike Bahuns that sports, that opportunity for sports, but probably most specifically, all those coaches that are our heroes get to be elevated in a time where that's not the case with most coaches and our perspective of who they are.
That's beautiful. And your business is serving such a need. It has an impact on people's lives in a profound way. And I think that sometimes as an adult, we don't think about the impact we have on kids in sports. But if we stop for a moment and we start thinking about our own childhood sports experience, we realize that those childhood memories are still with us today. That coach that believed in you, or worse, the coach that didn't believe in you, they're still in your head. They're still a memory. And emotion, the stronger the emotion, the stronger the memory. And what you've been able to do by creating this franchise is allow more kids to play sports. You really have. You've created opportunities for organizations to exist, for organizations to grow, for schools to offer programs. And I just say this because this can't be overstated. It really can't. There's so many franchise opportunities out there. There's 4,000 plus franchise opportunities out there. Not all of them have a strong meaning behind it where you're truly making a difference in people's lives. And that's beautiful.
Yeah. It's just, and people ask me all the time, like, cause I do this and I coach baseball at Ohio State, and they ask me, like, how do you do that? Like, why are you doing that? When is it going to change? And my question for them is, why are you not doing more? And why are you not finding what you love so you want to work 100 hours a week?
It doesn't feel like work, right?
No.
Of course not. It's amazing when you do. It's not only doing what you love. When you do something that fulfills you, it doesn't feel like work, right? It's the art of fulfillment. And look, the business, it gets dirty at times, right? It's not always pretty. And if I can be so bold and say this, coming from the background in sports franchising, I used to tell potential franchisees when they would say, they're excited about opening, an I-9 Sports franchise. And I would say, you realize that in the office, we don't talk touchdowns and home runs and goals. We talk management, marketing, finance, technology, operations, because that's at the heart of it all. We're running a business, but the vehicle itself is sports. And running a Fundraising University franchise is just that too. Yes, right? You're communicating and you have an incredible purpose and you're making a difference. But why don't you share with the audience, what exactly are the things that I'm doing day in and day out as a franchisee?
Yeah. It's it's a lot of fundamental and basic business activity, right? Like, there's nothing super complex about our model, which I think is really neat because it gives me the confidence that so many people can succeed if they follow the plan. And that's ultimately where you want to get to a point, is where I can say this out loud on your show and I can look a family in the eye that's going to invest in us and say, if you do this, within this degree of success, you will have. And that's the best feeling in the world, to have that conviction. So, the problem that they're solving, which every good business starts with, is those sports or activity groups, they need more money. I mean, that's just a simple financial equation in our economy, right? These schools are getting less money. They will get less money. That will not change. And then if you take the infrastructure of the modality below it that we've all seen, that has functional and very dysfunctional parts, of the 11-year-old baseball team that your nephew's on that has 7 uniforms when they need one, that they go on 4 trips out of town, that they have 7 hats, that they have the technology. And so when you have less money, right, and you're averaging about $52 per participant nationwide that a student athlete gets, and then now you're spending about $300, and that continues to get worse, well, then the problem that we're solving is very obvious. Okay, so and then who are we solving that problem for? Well, they're all in the same place. They're at a school, and they all basically operate on the same schedule. So then it's just a contact game. How many of those people can you get in front of? And then, like you said, selling yourself, which is the art of business. How many great people can I find that live in a community to go into their schools that can present themselves with trust so that they can solve a problem for them that gives kids more opportunities? And so the way that that's done is it's Monday through Thursdays. They're in schools, either prospecting and outbound direct selling, which isn't for everybody. And they're also doing account management and working with the teams. And that's what they're doing. I mean, we have this theory inside Fundraising U is, people will say you work from home, and we say, no, you work from your car. If you're at home, you're in trouble. And so we are in schools talking to coaches and kids. And, on the back of this shirt, it actually says it. And it's another thing we have. Good things happen when we're in schools. And so that's what they do every day is they get into schools and talk to people, and they raise money for those teams to just grow the community that they're in. And that's, for us, it's super intimate, right? Because we talk about how it's a service, and there's this whole conflict in business where, you want the national features and the amenities that go with national brands, but you also want that sense of community and you want that local touch. Well, we're able to provide both uniquely, and that's very conscious. And so that person being in those schools, building those relationships that to this point, 3 years and 5 months into it, Frank has created a 92% residual rate on our customers.
It's amazing. There's 4,000 plus franchisors to choose from. How many of them, though, they have a mission that's making a difference in people's lives? Not many of them. It's pretty easy to say why somebody would want to be a franchise owner of Fundraising University. What are the right kind of traits, though? I want to know, who are you looking for? Who's that ideal franchise owner? What are some of the traits they need to have? Certainly somebody that needs to get out of their house and they need to talk with people, right? I mean, that's key. But I want to kind of get understanding, what are those traits that really, I want somebody to hear and go, yeah, that sounds like me.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's 5 key characteristics that we're constantly evaluating our candidates, because we know if they exist, that success will exist for them. And that's our responsibility. So we've narrowed that down to, number 1, you nailed it, right? Any business owner has to be a self-starter. It has to start with them, and they have to be organized, right? Mm-hmm. You have to be coachable. You're buying a system that's coaching you. And then for us, these two are the really kind of the kind of contrast that we're evaluating all the time. You have to have a high level of empathy, right? Because you're working with kids in schools and they need to see that from you. But you also have to be, and this is my favorite one, it might be my favorite word, and it's definitely the disease that I have. You have got to be so competitive to be in our group that you will just be uncomfortable even being on a conference call if you're not competitive in our group. And we have former NFL players, Major League Baseball players, college AD, Power 5 coaches, entrepreneurs and business owners and top-level salespeople that are elite. And our number one thing that I'm looking for constantly is competitiveness, because to me, competitiveness solves almost everything.
Hunger to me is the number one trait you need to be successful, because hunger gets you through the bad days, the bad weeks, the bad months, and sometimes a bad year, right? If you're not hungry, you're not going to survive. Incredible. That's why so many businesses fail. That's beautiful. And who would think that you would need this competitive spirit, because you're doing fundraising. You think you're doing good, but if somebody thinks I'm just doing good and they think that the business is going to fall their way, that's not the way it works, right? You got to be out there. You got to hustle. You got to be willing to talk with people. And you're going to get no sometimes too, right? Not everybody's going to say yes, I would imagine.
And everybody's not for us either, too. Again, because it's a performance-based service, we have to spend the time where people align with that system, and it's okay that if they don't, we need to help them find the right place for them. Maybe it's a bake sale, or maybe it's, pull everybody to the restaurant and get 10% for 40 hours of their time. But, they've got to fit us too.
Yeah. Is your franchise opportunity strictly full-time, or is it more part-time available, an option for people?
Yeah, it's a great, I think a lot of brands struggle with their identity on what that is. Right. And the real answer is, Frank, that we didn't know what that really meant until we interacted with it. Right. Because you could say you're owner operator. You could say you could be semi-absentee. Right. But how do you really know that until somebody operates in those? Like, the people that define those in advance they must be a lot smarter than me if they know that before they had experience with it. And so we actually can say, after, lots of learning, intentional learning and grace with others, that we operate both. Now, to your earlier question, that skill set, that mindset, really, the mindset is very different between the owner operator and the semi-absentee person. The owner operator is the doer, the controller. Everything starts with me. I'm going to define my worth. That one's a more frequent one that we find for our first time entrepreneurs. But then this owner operator, is got a different skill set, right, and a different mindset. And so we have some of those. We're really intentional about how those should be. But, like, for an example, we have a gentleman named David who has bought 10 locations. Well, he's grown a business from 500,000 to 300 million. So we felt like he was qualified to say he could do that, right? And so, he wants to lead. His purpose now is making other people become business owners. So he has that time and skill set. And so we are semi-absentee and we are owner operator. We have had people come into the business and they fear leaving where they're at to be an owner operator, and they try to do both. And that's where we've seen some of our struggles. It's to try to be all things to all people and with good intentions and end up nothing to nobody struggle.
I agree. Yeah. The old phrase I've heard is, when you try to be everything to everybody, you focus on nothing, right? You can't be. You really have to hone in on it. So what does, how elaborate is training? What does training look like? I understand you've got this quick turnaround. I've got some notes here on it, but it's incredible how quick you get people up and running. Share a little bit about what it takes for somebody to get started and how quick they're getting up and running.
Yeah. It's a testament to those 4 years of pre-scale activity, right? Like, and we segmented development, and we're really lucky. And I really think it's the thing we do best, to be honest with you, is coaching, right? Because, I'm a coach first and foremost. We have the mental performance coach for the Atlanta Braves, which is part of our development team. We have a guy named Brian Kane. You can look him up. He's worked with over 1,000 athletes, Kyler Murray, George St. Pierre. We have Michael Effinger, who is the preeminent trainer. And you go through the 10 people that we have, and all of them are involved in the onboarding. All of them are in the training. And we can be successful because we can focus on just sales for 60 days before we allow ourselves to actually run the fundraiser. So really, we're onboarding them for 180 days, about 400 hours. But they're an intentional progression, much like you may see the minor league baseball system. They're going to come into A-ball. They're going to master this before they go to high A. And I think our intuitiveness to coach allows that. And, quite frankly, from the non-developmental but business side of that, is the model is so simple, right? You get out of you get up in the morning, you get in your car, you drive to a school. They say, I want to do a fundraiser. And literally that same day you could run a fundraiser. We actually had that happen. I even fearful saying this, that this is a normal. So I want to say that this is not normal.
Okay.
But we actually had somebody on the 4th day run their first fundraiser, and they generated $26,000 in gross sales for this cheer team. And they had a 30% EBITDA on that. And that was on the 4th day.
Wow. So your franchisees obviously you're making a cut off the fundraising. That's how they're generating money.
Yeah. They're operating at an EBITDA that would be very advanced, a very advanced EBITDA for the franchise space, with a very low cost and a very quick turnaround. And so we're taking an average of about 2022 average, our gross sale is around $13,000 a fundraiser, and most of our owners are operating at a higher than 25% EBITDA.
Tell me a little bit about training now. Your support, your team. How big is this team that you have now with 70, 80 total locations, including company owned? What does that look like? So your corporate staff.
We've got 10 support people. We're always going to be keeping about a 1 to 10 ratio. We've got some, as technology and all of us know that evolves, that we're very conscious of the evolution of that with the human capital, responsibility with people. And so the onboarding training is they go through a pre-training period where we actually, in our ERP, we have an LMS system that they're going to take about 40 hours of just baseline educational development. And then they go into what we call an intensive training period where they're going to come down to Scottsdale, Arizona, and they're going to get about 40 hours of in-person training. And then they're going to have week 3, a team leader go into their territory with them, and they're going to evaluate, the translation of those teachings into a tangible evaluation of them while we're also modeling that for a couple weeks. And then on the 60th day, they come out to us. And so there's an interwoven 30 days with our trainer, and that's our rookie training. And then we have those developmental folks that take them through different progressions during those 180 days. And our goal is at 180 days that which is very rare in business, but but too many times expected. We're hoping on that 7th month that they're actually profitable.
I'm sorry. How long? How many months was that?
The 7th month, our goal is to have them profitable.
That's beautiful. That is incredible. And these territories that somebody owns, they are divided by territory, right? There are protected territories.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yep.
How big is big, Mike? Like how big do you see this thing getting? What's your vision for this company?
So within our ERP, we have taken a territory that you mentioned. And for us, the territory is 50,000 high school age students in a contiguous area. And those 50,000 students nationally, minus Hawaii and Alaska, they translate to 234 units that we have available. So our goal would be to get, there's going to be some shifting and moving in some rural. So, we would like to be at 200 territories, averaging $1 million per territory by 2030.
84% of all franchisors never get to 100 units. Not only are you going to get there, but you're going to get there rather quickly. You're at this moment an emerging franchise brand, but you're going to be a mature brand in the not too far out future. That's absolutely incredible. What has been the biggest surprise though, since you've been franchising literally 3 years? What's been the biggest surprise thus far about franchising?
Yeah, I would say the skills that people bring from corporate America and the underdevelopment of those skills that we arrive with them. And we're okay with that with the coaching, but we have, people that are, top level medical sales, field, reps, field trainers. We have people that have been accountants that have come over. We've had people that would have what would presume to be, we've had a lawyer that would presume to have some business skills that are really not transferable into the entrepreneurial place. And so we've had to spend a lot more time with the majority of our folks being first-time entrepreneurs. We've had to go back and relayer more of a business foundation than we were expecting.
Yeah, I would say that for my experience has been similar in that most folks, it was their first endeavor in business before, which caught me off guard starting out because I really knew how to run the business of running sports leagues, but teaching somebody to run the business of sports leagues is completely different. So that was an eye opener for me, but I'll tell you what, you kind of hit the nail on the head about the kind of people that you were getting is from a skill set level. The beauty of franchising is that you're bringing people on that I could never have afforded as an employee, not in a million years. And by people like, folks, attorneys, former Major League Baseball players, they have skin in the game. They come with a whole level skill set that just is incredible. And that's a testament to your brand. When you're bringing people on like that they're leaving a career or they had an expectation of what they left, where they can go anywhere they want and they're choosing you. That's amazing.
We're super lucky. I have to pinch myself every day with the people we have.
And then what's this other thing I see here? So again, you've been franchising for 3 years and you're already number one in a category in Entrepreneur 500. Which category is that?
I think it's the sales and service part.
That's amazing. That is absolutely incredible. So is there a vision bigger than the 230 some odd units US? Are we thinking international? What are we thinking beyond this?
It's interesting because a year ago I would have said, we're just going to stay focused on this and do it. But I honestly got into this to find more ways to affect more kids and coaches. And this was an immediate need that was a business, right? And so I think what's next for us is I have a foundation called Coaching Matters that we do that's completely free for coaches to go on and get training from top coaches like the people I've mentioned and top athletes, where they just go on. And an example that we've focused on is mental sports performance, something that I have a background in. And so we just want to continue to improve that athlete experience, whether that's aligning with people. I was just on a group that sought us out that's going to put a national facility together in Kansas City that's modernizing how we can make kids, safer through health, safer through the mental health. We can evolve. And I just see us expanding more into deeper places where we can create the best experiences for kids. And I think those will just happen on their own. And that's the light that we would want to shine. I would hope that, these strategic partners emerge, that we can have kind of a full offering of how to, appropriatize this space for kids. And hence the university. I always thought there would be some elasticity to this model. And an example of it would be, like for your model, we've seen this unfortunate evolution of great parents, for the most part, who just want what's best for their kids, but they have no understanding of how to contribute to it, right? And then there's no one out there teaching the role of the parent, the role of the umpire, the role of so I see that as a place where we can get the attention and the audience, but really we want to glorify the experience of a coach and improve the experience of an athlete. And that's where I see us going, whatever that looks like.
That's great. And at the end of the day, we were talking about the childhood memories of playing sports, right? We are impacted by how that coach, treated us, the things we learned or the things we didn't learn. All those memories are very, very, alive with us today. So if you can make an impact that way by trying to influence coaches and, parents, at the end of the day, my gosh, we always said this, the kids were never the problem. It's the parents. Yeah. It's always the parents. And there's been studies done where kids say they perform better and actually enjoy playing sports more when their parents are not watching them.
And it's very interesting. Until I had my own children and I was a coach, and I've been a coach, since 1996. So, whatever that is, 28 years, anywhere from when they're 8 years old. And I've got some guys that I've coached that I'm lucky that play Major League Baseball. And when I was a young coach, I just thought parents were crazy, right? And they just don't know what their role is in most cases. We just don't teach that. And we have such a responsibility to teach that. They just want their kids so much to do well, and they want to give them everything that they can. And it gets a little crazy sometimes. And if we can fix that there, then all these things that you're seeing play out in professional baseball and college baseball, this very high shift to individualness and transactional society that we're in sports, where really team is not even a concept anymore, right? And that's where you lose what sports is intended to do, like you talked about with the relationships. And we've gotten away from relationships in sports, and we've gotten it to be very, very individualized. And we want to get enough traction to where we can expedite that. And for example, how many youth organizations or tournaments and all these things that are out there that you've seen, how many of those do a background check on a coach? How many of them give them education to be certified? How many of them continue to give them education? How many of them have a place a coach can go and get on a hotline and not be discouraged and give up on a team in the middle of the season that does hurt 15 kids and does make 8 of those kids quit playing sports? And it does all these things that it does. We just have to get better at youth sports, because, if the opportunity that we all know is that's so great for kids, if we're not intentional about making that better and we're not intentional about just being conscientious of it, we're losing one of the best developmental places we have in our country, which is on the field with mentoring and coaching. And I think it's an epidemic. And I think you're seeing that with the phones and I'm not that guy that, is here to preach about phones, but we have to be real careful that we're not taking that youth experience not serious enough for our children. And I think we're getting pretty close to that being an issue.
Yeah. It's about setting the culture, right? In any franchise organization, in any company, non-franchise, culture is everything, and setting an expectation. And the interesting thing about being in the youth sports business is that you're just not servicing, it's not just the franchisees, it is the parents are really an extension of the business, where, they're the customer, but their behavior spills over into the experience that the other parents have, right? So they'll say, oh my gosh, that organization is horrible. Well, why is it horrible? Oh my gosh, the parents. They're part of the culture. It's the entire ecosystem of youth sport. The whole ecosystem is the referee, is the volunteer coach, it's the parents, it's the kids, it's the program director, it's the on-site coordinator, it's everybody. That's what I love about amateur sports so much. That's what I love about what you do, is that your brand is fulfilling a huge need. It's that gap. And I think if you can somehow take this incredible vehicle that you have of helping organizations raise money and now also help create or strengthen culture, you've got something. Sticky is not even the word for it. It's a legacy brand. I think you've got a great opportunity that way. Gosh, yeah. Mike, if you were to go, if you can go back in time and tell your younger self anything, what would you tell? What would you say?
Yeah, I would say always take the hard road, right? Because so many times we live in this society, again, back to the youth sports and the parents, where we want to give ourselves tools and resources, and we want to speed up everything that we're doing. And I say the hard road because real winning and real development and real passion and connection are like what we talked about the other day. It's in the process. It's in those moments where it's so hard, you're going to give up. It's in those moments where your best person leaves you, that you made a mistake, that, it makes your organization weaker and you got to, find the next deal. And so I would create an acuteness to the process, and I would measure the process rather than the results.
Any advice you'd give to somebody that's looking at Fundraising University? Like, what advice would you give to an aspiring entrepreneur, somebody that's consider joining you? Don't
wait. Right. Like a lot of the people that we get they've made it a little harder. They've waited really a lot longer than they could have or should have, where they really have their best and most impressionable and biggest opportunities and time on their side to succeed, to grow. And so I can't, I hear it all the time, when we sit down with people, and this is answering your question, it's, I'm afraid to do it. I'm afraid to make the investment. I'm afraid to leave my job. I'm afraid to, and we empathize with that and we care about it. Right. But I'm afraid to not be in control of my destiny. Like, I'm afraid of being in their situation. Right. And so there's never anything that will help develop confidence, growth, and encouragement than you accomplishing it, being up to you. And so many times we limit our ceilings by not even giving ourselves a chance to explore them. So my advice would be now, right? Absolutely now. If you think you want to be a business owner, there's not going to be a better time. It's not going to be this place in 6 months when this happens. It's absolutely, it's not even a plug for us. It's a plug for entrepreneurship. It's right now. And it's never been easier to be successful in entrepreneurship than right now. And I believe that with all my heart.
I agree with you. And you have absolutely created a system that has absolutely proven it, considering you guys are blowing up. Absolutely. You've been at it a long time, even though you've only been franchising for 3 years. Like I said, you're emerging, but before you know it, you guys are going to be a mature brand. And especially since the territories they're exclusive territories. Once the territory is gone, it's gone. So, yeah, I totally agree with you. If somebody wanted to get some more information about your franchise opportunity, where can they go learn?
Yeah, they can just reach out to me directly. I'm not bashful about that. I've been having people that have discouraged me from having them go to me. And I would tell any business owner ever, if the most important thing to you is not finding the best people, then you're spending your time in the wrong place. So they can call me directly, 402-680-5029. If you're excited about a business and helping kids, man, I would love to just talk to you about why, even if it's just getting to meet you.
Wow. And the website that they should go to also, alternatively, what's that?
Yeah, it's www.fundraising, one word, and then the letter u.net.
Mike, thank you so much for being on the show. You were an awesome guest. I wish you all the best. You have such an inspiring background, mission. I hope to see you at a franchise conference one day, and you guys are absolutely rocking it. So again, congrats. It was a pleasure meeting you.
Thanks, Frank. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you for tuning into the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. For additional insights, guest applications, and to stay connected, visit us at efbpodcast.com. The Emerging Franchise Brands podcast is for entertainment purposes only, and the views expressed do not necessarily represent those of Emerging Franchise Brands, its host Frank Fiume, or Emerging Franchise Group, LLC. Any discussed franchise or investment opportunity requires thorough investigation, obtaining proper disclosure documents, and expert consultation before making any investment decisions. The podcast and its host do not offer professional advice or endorsements, and they hold no responsibility for actions, representations, accuracy, or consequential damages related to the podcast content.